So what's going on in the world? Why is the world so crazy? Well, there's a study that came out recently. It was the National Institute of Mental Health, I think, that reported on something called social contagion. Anybody ever hear of social contagion before? How do you get a flu? How do you get sick? How does the cold get spread around? Viruses, right? Now, does a virus target anybody in specific? Does a virus go, I don't like the looks of that guy, I'm not going to go affect him? No. The virus targets the next available host. Black, white, tall, short, gay, straight, old, young, does not matter. If you're available to take on a virus, the virus will go into you and now you're sick. If somebody else has a cold and they give you the virus, does their cold get better? No. So we can make each other sick, even though that doesn't make us feel better, we can make each other sick. This is what's going on in the world, and people don't know what's going on because we've got an ego versus spirit dynamic going on. People are making each other sick because we're becoming something of a godless culture. We're not focusing on this thing called spirit, which is this healing energy, and we are focusing on this thing called ego, which is physical focus. And if we focus on ego, we get filled up with that type of energy, and then we distribute it to each other. If we focus on spirit, we get filled up with that type of energy, and then we distribute that to each other. It's real simple. So each one of us has the ability to work on immunity. Immunity is what happens when you get filled with spirit, or as Jesus would say, if your eye is single, your body will be filled with light. Single eye just means staying focused. And if you stay focused on spirit, you get filled with that kind of energy. So here's you in the middle of this diagram. And if you're just sort of focused on spirit, you're just sort of focused, or you're just sort of filled with spirit. And let's put a number on that. Let's say you're 47% filled with spirit. And you're walking around in a world where there's tons of other people, and they're all doing this too, they just don't know it. Other people you might come across, there's different shapes and or different sizes here on purpose because we have different volumes of this type of energy in ourselves. But you might be near somebody who's totally focused on ego, which is just to say physically focused. So the social contagion article says what we're doing is spreading mood around to each other. And there's a pretty good study. They focused on teens in particular in the United States. And they recognize that teens, think of high school, are constantly spreading moods back and forth to each other. And they don't know it. Well, this is what this drawing will depict. So if you come across somebody who's filled with ego energy, just like you have a potential to pick up somebody else's virus, if you're near somebody who's filled with ego energy, you're going to pick up their ego. And so if this is them and this is you, and you come across them, who has more of this particular type of energy? This guy. More. And so that makes you vulnerable because this person has more of that particular type of energy. And so what can happen is this red stuff, this ego stuff, actually gets into you a little bit. And now you're sick. In a minute, we're going to go through some of the spiritual teachings, which teaches us how to keep this from happening. But this is what's happening all the time to people, and they don't know it. Imagine if we didn't know how people got sick from colds. Right? People would cough, and you just breathe it in. You'd think nothing of it. You're like, wow, why did I get sick? I have no idea why. And yet we're living in a world where people are walking all over the place and infecting each other. And so it's not just this. You have some people with a little bit of the ego, other people filled with spirit in your life, right? And it's all percentages too. Some people have a little bit of spirit and a decent amount of ego. Sometimes that's religion because people are connected to something, but at the same time they look at it physically and they argue over whose prophet is better, stuff like that. That's still ego. And then you have some people are just empty vessels all around. They're also very vulnerable to everybody else. And this is a pattern that's going on for everybody. Now, for our purposes, I want you to think in terms of your percentage and what you're filled with, and then how to proceed. Because when you go out into society and you're faced with all these energy dynamics of all these different people, not only are you connected to that person, you are connected to that person through this person. The whole STD thing, every person you've slept with every person they've slept with too. Well, every person you engage with energetically, you're engaged with every person they've been engaged with too. This is how we're all one. the whole world is connected like on this energy blanket. And so if you're connected to this person, and this person is connected to this person, and this person's loaded with ego energy, and this person gets more affected on that particular day, and you interact with that person, it was really this person that created it. And then you end up feeling more sick as a result. Forgive them, they know not what they do. Okay? This person isn't walking around thinking, I'm going to be a real jerk to you today. They just have this different energy inside of them. They don't know why. Just like when you have a cold, guess what? You're going to cough, you're going to have a runny nose. It happens. It's symptoms. Symptoms of ego are what? Rude, aggressive, angry, resentful, the opposite of the fruits of the Spirit. And that's what people who are loaded with ego do. Not very forgiving, not very patient, happening all the time. And so if you connect with the person who's connected to that person might have got it from somebody else too. This is why you got to keep forgiving everybody. Forgiveness is really putting up a barrier. Whoops, probably want to put a red one there. Forgiveness is putting up a spirit barrier energetically between you and some of these people. You could still hang around with them, but you have immunity. So what's happening? We're living in a world where everybody's connected and everybody's entangled. This is Einstein science, right? Everybody's entangled. Energetically, they've proven that particles are connected to other particles from long distances away, what Einstein calls spooky action at a distance. And it's an energy connection. This is the science of prayer, too. Why would that work? Buddha's metta prayer, when you just wish well for other people. Instead of living in a country where we're hating on people, especially like the opposing political party, that affects people. No wonder we get affected. If this person is hating on this person and they're spreading more energy back and forth, now these guys are more sick, guess what? This guy's more likely to get sick too. If there are 3 billion people in the world with a cold, are you more vulnerable now? Absolutely. This is what's happening worldwide. As we become less God-focused or less spirit-focused, we're so into the physical world, we're becoming more ego-focused, it spreads like a disease. Fortunately, there's ways around this. There's a hadith, which is a Muslim teaching, that says we're separated by God with 70,000 veils of light. There's 70,000 blankets, if you will, between us and God. And we need to remove those blankets. The blankets really are ego. Rumi, who's a Muslim poet, says you want to remove the blankets, you love in every moment. Each moment that you choose love, one of the blankets is removed. Well, what happens when we interact with a guy like this? And we feel their tremendous ego energy, and we feel the impulse to fight back, which is purely an ego thing. What happens? You just got infected. But what if you chose love in that moment, and you send love back to that person or spirit? You just removed one of the veils. You just got a little closer to God. And in the process, you just got a little more filled with spirit yourself. Now remember, if there are 3 billion people affected with flu, you're vulnerable. What if there's only 17 people infected with flu worldwide? We're not as vulnerable, right? So guess what happens when I work on filling myself with more spirit? Guess what happens? I'm more likely to affect this person to the positive. If I take my 47% number and become 53%, I just affected the entire world. This is why Gandhi says, be the change you want to see in the world, right? If I can increase my sense of spiritual focus, I just affected the entire world. And vice versa, because if I become more physically focused, I'm bringing down the entire world. You know how rising tide lifts all boats? Well, lowering tide lowers all boats as well. Okay? So each one of us is, as Gandhi says, a mirror for the world. And so you're experiencing all this stuff, and you're judging it on a moment-to-moment basis, whether or not you're looking for the spirit in it or not. Like Rumi says, love in each moment. Jesus in Matthew 5:37 says, all you do is say yes or no. Any more comes from evil. Each moment of your life, if you choose yes, more spirit please, whether it's in a traffic jam, or in a long line at Walmart, or when your favorite team is losing a game, or when someone you love dies, or when you get a promotion. Spirit, 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 spirit in every single moment. And every time you do that, you get filled more with spirit. Look what's happening to this person. Now they're up to 73% more and more spirit. And now they've got more money, spiritual capital, right? They could spread that to other people. Help give them immunity. Matthew 22:37, Jesus makes it pretty clear what you want to do. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Right? It's not about focusing on other people and making them false idols. If you can trust the universe, if you can trust God, you get filled with the energy. Don't do it just a little. Do it with 100%. All your heart, soul, mind, and strength. He just doesn't go sometimes, 50% of the time, or just on Sundays. All the time, nonstop. Stay focused. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And then you become immune. You don't have to deal with the ego stuff anymore. Would you guys like to never get a flu again? Well, how about never being affected by ego again? Wouldn't that be nice? No fear anymore, no resentment anymore, no cowardice anymore. Constant awareness, full wisdom, complete acceptance of all circumstances, and this blissful feeling inside, sort of known as nirvana or heaven or whatever. That sounds like a win-win scenario to me, right? And while you're doing it, you have the opportunity to affect other people, because Jesus then says, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. See, I hope Scott works on this, right? If Scott works on it, do I benefit? Because if he never gets the flu again, I'm less likely to get the flu around him. Well, if Scott, let's make Scott this guy. All right. And Scott goes like this. And he gets all filled up. Do I want to vibe with him? Heck yeah, I want to pick up what he's got. And by doing that, I get more spirit. When two or more are gathered in my name, I'm there with them. That's Christ. That's the energy. That's people vibing together. Let's just draw. Tell me what this is. It's a dollar bill. Okay. Money is part of this. Yeah, that's George Washington. Could you have an ego relationship with money? Can you have a spiritual relationship with money? Right. Can you have an ego relationship with your job? Can you have a spiritual relationship with your job? Can you have an ego relationship with adversity? Could you have a spiritual relationship with adversity? And then if I could draw death, I would do that right now. But can you have an ego relationship with that, or can you have a spiritual relationship with that? See, if you choose spirit in all moments, not only do you continue to get full and diminish the ego inside, and by the way, I'm showing you crucifixion right now. Look at this. I must decrease so he may increase. Whenever you get rid of all that ego inside of you, you were just crucified with Christ. Look at that. Now you just worked on your perfection, which is what all these words are in every single religion. Some formation of perfection. Dzogchen is Buddhist for perfection. Isan is Islam for perfection. Moksha is the complete liberation of ego, which is perfection. The verse 29 from the Tao is, you are a vessel of perfection. And in Matthew 5:48, Jesus says, be perfect. Okay? You must get 100% filled with the Spirit. Is there any doubt about that? I mean, if you go through the logic of all this, and all the prophets are saying it, you got to be perfect. Well, there it is. You can't look, all these people are bald. Because that's not perfect, right? Bellies, that's not perfect. That's bad. I'm going to hell. No, of course, that's stupid. Perfection is a spiritual thing. When you're filled with the light, you're perfect. That's all you got to do. All the prophets agree on this. What does Buddha say? His last words, strive for your own liberation with diligence. Your own liberation? Well, I drew it for you. What are you looking at? If this is you, and you got all these other people gathered around you, you got to liberate yourself. Liberation, by the way, is moksha in Hinduism. That's a Buddhist quoting a Hindu philosophy, right? And so strive for your own liberation means to detach, very good, important Buddha teaching, forgiving all of this stuff. Forgiving just means stop having an ego relationship with it. Forgiving all of it so you're insulated, like in a bubble. And then you could just connect to God and get filled with the Spirit, and then you could distribute the Spirit to others. Some amazing teachings of Jesus from the Gospel of Thomas, I think this is, when he says, arm yourself with great strength, for like thieves in the night, they will steal your possessions. Arm yourself with great strength. Like thieves in the night, they'll steal your possessions. That's because if you're surrounded with an army of these guys, you're going to get infected by them whether you know it or not. And they don't even know they're doing this. How many people are walking around? Ego, by definition, is ignorant and asleep. They're not walking around knowing they're stealing your energy. Some people might try to do that, but it happens automatically. You're going to arm yourself with great strength, and you don't do it by more weapons. You do it with more spirit. Next thing you know, when you're filled with more spirit, you can't get affected by other people. This is why I love to show the scene in The Matrix where Neo is getting shot at by the robot bad guys, and he just stops the bullets and he looks at them and he drops them. And then he enters them and it explodes his head, right? That's what you can do. You could get stopped. All these people are always firing bullets at you all the time. You could stop that dead in their tracks. You could see it coming a mile away. Buddhists call it discriminating awareness or discernment. You could see when somebody's filled with ego and somebody's filled with spirit. By the way, there's a Bible line on this. You can tell that. You can know them by the fruits of the Spirit. So it's pretty easy to see. Scott, my man over here, he's patient, he's compassionate, he's wise, he's peaceful as a result. I'm like, well, that's pretty easy to identify. But, go to Best Buy on Black Friday, right? Should you be able to tell what's coming? Okay, you should be able to tell. And the more you're filled with spirit, the more you should be able to notice that. All right? This whole system is working together. All of us are one. I benefit when you get better. You benefit when I get better. And it doesn't do any good to hate on other people because you're going to stay in the system until we've all reached perfection. You're going to keep, it's called samsara. It's the wheel. It's a wheel of suffering. You want to keep suffering? Well, keep getting infected by others. Or don't work on your own perfection. Don't work on your own liberation. Work on other people's liberation. Well, what's Jesus say about that? Don't worry about the speck in your neighbor's eye when you got log in your own, okay? So if you're this guy and you're walking around saying, boy, that guy's loaded with ego, he's a big jerk. You know what? Well, you know what? You probably should work on diminishing some of this yourself, okay? And it doesn't matter how you got there because nobody invented the flu virus, did any of you? Nobody invents the flu virus. You just get it sometimes. Nobody invented ego. The souls come here to have this experience. We all get sick. Everybody's gotten sick. You get a chance to work on immunity, right? And that's done by connecting to the Spirit full time, all the time. And then not wavering with that. That's why perfection is the goal. We're all going to be working on it. We all are working on that whether we know it or not. You get to decide how much suffering you go through ultimately by the amount of focus you want to put in.